Hi, friends. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, smash that subscribe button. As you can see, it's not Ray and Benny, although Benny's here in spirit. But we got Jordan from the BC Lions. Talk about spirits. You got that halo around your head, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. A little unintentional, but it worked.
And Jordan is the game and event presentation manager for the BC Lions, and we're going to get talking about Touchdown Pacific, the Grey Cup, BC Lions, and let's start off by talking about your gig. Like how'd you get into the CFL? Have you been a fan since you were a kid, and what led up to you working with the BC Lions in this position?
Yeah, I mean, first, thanks for having me. Pleasure to
Of
be here
course,
with you.
of
It's
course.
been a while since we podcasted. It's a good question. It's a funny story because it's like there's sort of starts and stops. But when I was a kid, obviously growing up in Edmonton, summers at Commonwealth was kind of like it's what everybody did. It was the tradition, right? You went to watch CFL football because it was a cheap, affordable family entertainment, and that was what we did. My dad bought us as a family, I think, season seats 1 or 2 years, and it was one of three brothers, so we had to kind of split the games. So you'd get like two games each, and then he'd go with a buddy for one of the other games, because it was
Yeah,
an odd number or something like that. So I have great memories of that as a young kid watching those, and those are the Edmonton and teams with like early Ricky Ray, Jason Moss, Nealon Green, the first guy with the smoked visor, right?
beautiful.
Like I can
Yeah,
go back in the well for that. Jason Tucker, who's now a coach here with the Lions. So he and I have had some good conversations about the teams I grew up. He doesn't love me aging him, but I grew up, a fan of that. So yes, CFL in the family, in the blood. I think for a lot of Canadians growing up in the 90s when it was a bigger deal. It was a different deal. We were in a bit more of a monoculture. You didn't have as much options to watch. You watched what was on TV and it was always on. So yeah, I grew up loving it. And then as I got older, moved into film and broadcast and those kind of things. And that kind of brought me full circle around. Always wanted to work in sports. Love storytelling, love producing, the opportunity to, create the story outside of the football field, but all of the other experience that the fans have, that narrative that begins, even before gates, but once you're in the building, there's a story there.
yeah,
How
absolutely.
does that experience go? And so from that perspective, yeah, jumping kind of back into the CFL world's been a treat. I've been here now for 2 years. It's been awesome.
So you talk about like tradition, and going back to Edmonton, and you were there for tradition of winning. And when I grew up, I was there for the early '80s with the Bombers, and I was there for a tradition of winning, like 3 championships in the first 12 years of my life. That was crazy. So
Totally.
now, I was going to ask you about the Elks team later on, but I might as well bring it up now. What are your thoughts
Sure.
with them and having to rebrand, and not necessarily what your thoughts on the name are, but like them coming up with new ownership and them building a fan base since you're in that business? What are your thoughts on that on your home team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see some of the steps that they've taken forward because it's similar. I am still an Oilers fan. I haven't switched my allegiances in that side of it to
Yeah,
this side of the Rockies. I'm still an Oilers fan. So I also have suffered through, the decade of darkness in Edmonton and the fact that the Elks have kind of gone through their own little mini couple years here of darkness. And I mean, like rough times out of COVID and not winning and all of that. It's nice to just, at least from a CFL fan's perspective and as a former fan of that team, it's nice to see, I don't know, some steps in the right direction. I think they're on to something with this kid, Trey Ford. I think he's exciting for the league and exciting for the game. You can't
yeah,
discount how important those kind of players have always been for the CFL. This is a small league that depends very much on that those kind of, I don't know, flash in the pan moments that turn into these stories, right? I mean, as I said, I remember Ricky Ray showing up coming literally off the Frito Lay truck he'd been selling Frito Lays
yeah.
from, and all of a sudden, 4 or 5 years later, he's got a Hall of Fame career going, and it carries on for another decade. So I'm happy for them. I won't lie. I mean, obviously, we're still licking our wounds here in BC. They kicked our butts on Sunday, and it was frustrating because it was the third of three losses in a row. But there's a little part of me as that kid from Edmonton and equally someone in my role. Like I know the people personally who are working in that organization in my role. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine what it must have finally felt like to get that home win because it's hard. It's hard to do this job. As a fan, you ride high and low with your team. But when you are working side by side with these people and they are people. At the end of the day, I know it's easy to kind of disassociate when I think you're the fan of a team. I certainly do it for the Oilers. Like, I don't know them personally. What do I care? It's how they perform on the ice. But you
Yeah.
have to recognize these people get up every day, they go to work, they go home to their families. It's hard, you know? So I can only imagine what it's been like there for them in Edmonton. I'm happy for them. Not at our expense, please, would be great, but that's how this business goes.
So, like, what would you say with BC? Because, and let's tie it into that 50 Cent game experience and things that y'all are trying to do in BC to build that live audience. What would you say are some of the challenges? What is it the biggest challenge in growing, a stadium that's with 30,000, 40,000 consistently, or that's the effort, that's the goal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the biggest piece is it goes back to what I was saying. It's about what that narrative is around the team, and how do you communicate the story of this team to its fans. And we have some amazing fans who have been lifelong fans. I mean, we're celebrating our 70th season, and we know we have fans who literally had season seats since 1954. Like, it's very impressive. We have a great lineage, but it's different than other communities because I think Vancouver as a sports community is a very challenging market. There's so many things that we compete with. There's so many different things that people can do in the summer, and it isn't just other teams or other things. It's the mountains, it's the ocean, it's great food, it's great entertainment, it's world class. All these things, right?
Yeah.
And so you are constantly. And the beginning of our season and the end of our season butt up with the NHL, and that's a huge draw, right? And we've got the Whitecaps, and they're doing well, and so there's all these different things. But for us, I think as an organization, and certainly since Amar bought the team, there's been this real push to focus on how do you grow. And I think the most important way you grow is by telling your story to new people, sharing how they can be part of that story, and then allowing them to invest their own emotional investment in that story and become part of that story, that legacy, and all of those pieces. It's
Yeah.
about finding new audiences. We have a massive, untapped community in parts of the region that under previous ownership, maybe it wasn't the focus, and it is now. And we're trying to do that. Amar's really put a huge effort into developing, our community outreach. We do over 100, events during the season, and then like basically an event every day of the calendar year almost out in the community, just being there, showing people that we care, showing people that we're a part of it, that we're just like them. We want to be part of that community. We don't want to sit up on the high hill and say, hey, come and, pay top dollar for some product and we'll tell you how it should be. No, we want to be part of that, have that community, that dialogue, investing in youth football, grassroots, all of it, right?
Yeah.
All of those pieces add up. And I think what's great, and this was before I was here. I mean, obviously, Amar Doman's bought the team before I joined, but as a casual, viewer of the CFL in Vancouver before I joined this organization, I could already see it happening. You could already see there was this new excitement and energy around investing in the stuff that matters for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Affordable tickets, affordable food, different types of experience too. Because there's also a lot of people where it isn't about the affordability; it's about they want to be at the cool thing. They want to go and have that Instagram moment or that place where they can go and watch a football game with friends and feel like they're at an event. And it's all those things. So yeah, it all adds up. But I think the biggest piece is it's a recognition that if you stay still, you will get left behind in the speed at which our entertainment and our sports world moves at today. You have to
Yeah.
constantly be adapting and evolving and growing. And I think there are places, I'm not going to say where, but I do think there are places in Canada's sports landscape where there has been some stagnation, and you can see it. You see it in the stands, you see it in the ticket sales, and you can just see it in the energy. Those organizations, those leagues, those places that are constantly trying to and not just evolve for the sake of evolving, but evolve along with their fans is the key. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's always boggled my mind that you see a market, and I know you don't want to name names, but I see a market like Toronto, and just the size of the market where it's 2 point something million within the small Toronto GTA is almost 6 million, and you can't draw 1% of that percent of that population to a live event. It just and that's been not just Toronto. There's been markets who have
Yeah.
neglected their live audiences outside of the community-owned teams, who just out of necessity have always built a strong connection to the community. But the larger markets with private ownership, there's been some decades where it's been kind of neglected making those connections within the community. And it's great to see BC putting all that effort. Like, how was that 50 Cent experience? Like, I know, I don't know
Yeah,
if there's quantitative data on how it's, made more fans come to a dated to a game experience, but how was that? And how was that to have in the stadium and be there?
it was awesome. I mean, it was fantastic. Obviously, for me, first time that in the role I'm in, getting to experience that room full was pretty special. And I mean, my job specifically, and we can talk more about it later if you want, but like my job specifically on game day, I'm kind of live directing what we're doing, or calling the show, if you will.
Yeah.
So all of the things, I know what's coming, right? I know what the next time out's going to have, or I know what little surprise we might have for the fans. I know how it's playing out. And one of my greatest joys is when you have planned something and you've worked on what that moment is going to be, and you've anticipated how you think your crowd is going to react to it, and then it actually does, is so special. And so when you increase the capacity to 50,000 people,
Right.
it's a whole different size of wave you're riding, and all of those things that we had planned, and all these little things are coming a moment before. It's no different, I think, in many ways than theater. It's like you have prepared this thing that you are presenting to this audience, right? And you
Right.
think it's good, and you think you've done what they will enjoy, and until they're in the room, you don't know. And when you get 50,000 people in there, and 50 Cent pops up, and the pop in the room is unbelievable. And then the best part is, and this is obviously year 3 for that home opener concert, it is in so many ways the appetizer to the football game. And even though it's this massive artist and all these things, you're also trying to set it up in such a way that you don't lose the momentum. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job of being able to carry that through. And the best part, at least this year, we had a much better football game. The year before, when we had LL Cool J, and it was
Yeah.
still a great vibe in the room. We blanked the Elks, and it was kind of a ho hum game. Like, it was a tough game for a new CFL fan to really get behind, because it was like, it just wasn't an exciting football game. I mean, it was exciting if you're a Lions fan. You shut out the Elks, and it is what it is. But it's fun when it's able to kind of, when all the stars align, right, and you're all able to do it. And it was also, I think, a huge validation this year to see the size increase. Like, this is obviously the largest crowd that this home opener event
Mm-hmm.
has drawn. It validates the premise of it. Obviously, getting that level of artist is a huge part of it, but then all the other pieces that come with that. The stage is bigger. We basically got an abbreviated version of his tour show. Like, it was massive in terms of what it was. We had 2,000 fans on the field, like you would at a
Jeez.
Super Bowl halftime show. And this
Yeah.
is before the games even started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was
Totally.
very cool. It was very exciting to see the buzz. Yes, the key piece coming out of it is it cannot be a one-off. You have to then be able to turn that into tangible growth. And how do you build an audience from it? And I think that there are pieces of that we will continue to learn and how to figure out how to do. But I do think there are people who came into that building, maybe that's the first time they'd seen a CFL product, and I think they'll probably come back. And I think that that's why you do it, and that's why we build it that way.
Is there a way to maintain 50 Cent's energy throughout the game without starting with 50 Cent or LL Cool J?
Yeah, for sure there is. I mean, I like to think of it this way. My objective, there's a rhythm to football. And anybody who watches it knows there's a rhythm to football. But
Yeah.
there's also a rhythm to how a football game begins, right? And you've been to a stadium, any stadium in the world, they do a bunch of different things that are all about setting the table, let's say, for the game itself. And that's the whole pregame element, right? The players have finished their warm up. How do you tell the story of the game? There's a pregame show, or there's some video content, or whatever it is. Uh, all of it is designed by that creative team to set you up. My objective on our side is a sort of a crescendo. I want to slowly tell you what you can expect, get you a little bit buzzed, get you a little bit excited. And then in that last like 2 or 3 minutes before my team hits the field, my
Yeah.
job is to slowly take that crank on the amp and turn it to 11. So by the time my team hits the field, the room's already buzzing, and they can ride that momentum right into pregame through coin toss. And by the time we kick the ball off, we're sailing. And then the game does the rest of the work. The game tells you what it needs, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, there's a rhythm to it. You can tell right away. I mean, watch the game our two teams played a couple weeks ago, where that first quarter flew by because no offense was getting any traction.
Yeah.
Defense is making stops on both sides. It's a scoreless game early, and you could feel the rhythm of it being like, okay, one of these teams is going to just sort of grind the other one out here, or one of these teams is going to explode. And you already know that's coming. So you kind of feel the rhythm of it. From our job, from my job, like I'm half watching football. I'm crowd watching, right? I'm watching what my crowd needs.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not feeling it tonight as well as I need to. We need a little help on defense. We're going to make sure the crowd's up there. We've got some tools, content wise, and the PA announcer, whatever else, help that crowd give my defense a little bit extra, right? And some stadiums, fantastic at just knowing this. Other stadiums, you got to do a little bit more work. And one of the great challenges when you bring in 50,000 people, and let's say a third of them have never been to a CFL game, or maybe are casual CFL fans, there's some educating you got to do too, right? And
Yeah.
you got to teach them the rhythm of the game. You got to show them, hey, we don't need as much noise when we're on offense. In fact, it'd be great if you could just be quiet for a little bit so VA can hear the play call, right?
Totally.
But they don't necessarily know that because they're watching football at home or whatever. You got to teach them and you grow that. And then the game, again, as I say, it shows you what that rhythm is. And equally, you don't want to burn it all out in the first quarter because you're
Yeah.
going to need them in the fourth, right? You gotta be able to build that crescendo back up. So it's a rhythm thing. And I think what I really enjoy about my job is that I have one of the few jobs along with my team, but from my perspective, being able to sit up in the booth and see it all, I'm one of the few
Mhm.
people outside of football ops who can actually impact the game. And really good game presentation teams can do that because they know what pressure points, let's say, to push for their crowd, right?
Yeah.
And I will give your team full credit. Winnipeg's great at this. Winnipeg knows their crowd, they know what their rhythms are, and they follow it really well. And the crowd over time has learned really well how to do that. And it's a hard place to play in as an opposition. And that's the goal, right?
Absolutely.
My job is twofold. One, make it a great and entertaining experience for my fans, but also make it just a pain in the ass for the away team, right? That's my job.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways to do it. Lots of teams do it in different ways. I think the way we're doing it right now is working really well. And I think our fans are starting to, embrace how, at least like how I'm doing it. I don't think it's subconscious. They don't know I'm doing it. They have no idea what I've brought or what I'm trying to do differently than previous people in the role I'm doing. But I feel like, I'm learning them. They're kind of learning what we want to do. And I think it's working so far for our team. We've got a great home record to prove it. So there's my quantifiable data.
Hey, that's true. That's true. So then, just like how players have, a week of lead up and prep and they get ready
Yeah.
for game day, tell us what your job entails. Once a game is done and you have a home game coming up, how do you prep? What
Yeah.
information do you get? What's your game day look like? What's your game day prep look like? Talk us through Monday to game day.
Sure. I mean, it's funny. My game day, let's call it, started in February because as soon as we know our themes, as soon as we know our schedule, the work
Yeah.
starts there. You start already preloading all of what you're going to put in. You know what games you're going to need certain entertainment for. Our game on Sunday this week is our family day game. So it's our Fam Fest is the theme, and we knew that we knew that was something where we were going to, and we've done the same theme last year too. It's a great theme. It brings the opportunity for families to come together. So that's the frame, let's say, that we work with, right? So I know what's going to go in there. Again, as I say, all the way back in February, we call up longtime Canadian family entertainer Fred Penner. Hey, you want to come do a halftime? Lock him in. So that's done. The game week itself, you've got a lot of those big pieces. You know what those big pieces are going to be. What's your halftime entertainment? Maybe you got a special pregame element, or even just who your anthem singer is, and those kind of pieces. And then outside of that, it's scripting. So the whole game on our side is scripted, like literally written down. We know what every beat is going to be, because every quarter has 4 timeouts for TV, right? And that often surprises people. They're like, "Oh, there's so many TV timeouts." I'm like, "Well, actually, there's an exact number, and I can tell you exactly when they are because they're every 3 minutes." Or as
Yeah.
close to that as the CFL can allow. So TSN makes the decision exactly when they go to timeout, but it's always after a punt or always after a kick. They try not to break up drives if they can help it, except for the 3 minute warning. There's a rhythm. So what we go through, and I have scripted all of the in-game elements. So the activations, partner activations, we've got all these different holes to fill in the stadium when the crowd's, watching some Coca-Cola or Pepsi ad on TV. In the building, we're putting on a little show. So we've got activations where, kids are on the field racing, or um, you know, you've been to football games, you know what I'm talking about. That's
Yeah.
kind of the rhythm. So I script all those, all the ad copy, what the PA announcer is going to say, what exactly it's going to look like, and then working with, like, who are the members of our team that are going to run this activation? How many people do they need? All of it's written down, all scripted. And then basically that that scripting lets me work with our content team. There might be some specific content that comes into the game for the theme or whatever. Hey, we need this special video, or there's a tribute video, or we need some image for this, whatever it is. So I work with them to make sure we've got all of that content, and that's happening, as we move through the season. But on the Monday, Tuesday, it's when it really gets kind of locked in. And then by Wednesday, Thursday, that content has all been provided. We know what it is. The script is kind of, let's call it, locked. And then the content gets loaded in. It's tested. We make sure all the content works for the stadium. And then we kind of we have a challenge, or I mean, you can look at it however you want to look at it. I think it's a bit of a challenge, but we are one of multiple tenants in our building. So unlike teams that own their own building or their core tenant, we have to basically move in. And so we do that usually game day -1. So that whether if it's a Sunday game like this, we're actually moving in Friday or Saturday, and we're putting up our pageantry, and we're making the stadium look like a Lions home game, because it looks like a Whitecaps home game when they play, and all those things. So there's a bunch of different elements that go into how that's all set up. And my team, we've got some amazing people on our team who do a lot of that work. I sort of marvel at how fast they're able to turn it around. But while we're finishing those pieces, any last minute changes, all that kind of stuff gets done. And then it's game day, and game day, we put the plan into play, you know what I mean? And then you adapt just like any plan is, until you actually hit the room. You don't know what it's going to feel and look like. And some things come up, or, oh, surprise, Owen Wilson's here, and you got to get a live shot of him and fit that in somewhere into that script. It's all timed and perfectly, because every timeout too it's very rigidly timed, because you got to be in and out in timeout, so that you don't have some kid running around the field in a chicken costume when TSN comes back and expects football to play, right? So the rhythms of all of that are very set and scheduled, and it's all of that stuff. So
has that ever happened, or anything close to that happened?
Yes. I won't tell you when and where. We've had a few. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always things that it's live, right? It's just like live theater. It's a live entertainment thing. So there's always the best laid plans. And then I'll give you a good example of something similar. It's a little bit different in the sense that we didn't get stuck in a timeout, but the timing for timeouts is, as I say, determined by the TSN truck, because they know what their obligations are. They know when they fit it. It's about 3 minutes. So the first timeout is at 12 on the clock, then it's 9, 6, and 3. And so getting close to each of those, you kind of know a timeout's coming, and you're watching play and trying to figure out when it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously on radio with myself, my production team, all the people that are doing our in-house cameras, the actual activation team, like our promo team, our hype team on the field. We're talking to everybody, and we also are able to talk directly to a timekeeper, basically, and who is relaying these timeout. He's the timeout coordinator.
Yeah.
And so he goes, "Hey, after this kick, we're going to be in timeout." And you go, "Okay, great." And so the kick happens. Great, we're in timeout. We get told we're in timeout. We start the on-field activation, and then I'm looking, going, it doesn't look like we're in timeout. And I've got a wall of monitors next to me. I can see all of our cameras, but I also have like a dirty feed right from the TSN truck, so I know when they've gone to timeout.
Yeah.
And there's something going on, and I'm not sure what it is, but we're clearly not in timeout. And I've got people now on the field setting up this giant tic-tac-toe board, and immediately you realize you're in trouble, because they're going to let the next play happen. They're not going to go to timeout, even though they told you they were going to timeout. You're not going to timeout. So on the radio, hey, get off the field, and as fast as you can. Your team, you can see them scrambling to pull everything off, because they've got these props, and they got to get out of the way. The play's coming at them. So it's like those kind of things. They happen occasionally. Obviously, you do your best to avoid them, but it's how it works, right? So it's live.
What do you like to tell us about Touchdown Pacific?
I can tell you all kinds of fun stuff. So I've actually had the pleasure of being the team lead on this one. Touchdown Pacific, we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a really exciting event. It's going to be obviously, those familiar with the Touchdown Atlantic series kind of have an idea of what's coming. The big difference here is Touchdown Atlantic was and is, I mean, if they choose to go back, it's a CFL asset, right? So it is a CFL game. It's a neutral site game. The difference here is that we have taken this game and we own it. So it's actually a home game. So it's a BC Lions home game. We're just taking to a new venue. We're not even going to call it neutral site, because it is very much going to be a Lions home game. It'll have all the bells and whistles that we traditionally bring to our home games, all of our activations. It's going to look and feel like a Lions game. It's a home crowd as far as we're concerned, because we're not the Vancouver Lions, we're the BC Lions, and Victoria is the capital of the province, and we want to spread our love across this province, right? what else can I tell you about it? Obviously, the biggest hurdle here, the biggest challenge with it is we're taking a 3,000 give or take baseball stadium, collegiate baseball stadium,
Yeah.
and we're converting it to a 14,000 seat stadium. So we are bringing in temporary stands. We're bringing in a VIP area, a party zone, just a massive increase in the capacity for the park itself. It's not currently a football field in terms of how it was lined or laid out. It has a baseball diamond in one corner.
Yeah.
So we're laying grass to replace the infield shale. We had to bring in goalposts. All of these things that, on a normal game day, on a normal week, I would never have to worry about because I have this beautiful venue.
Yeah.
Here, it's right behind me. This beautiful venue in BC Place that has all of the amenities you could possibly want, including a roof in case it rains. Don't
Fair.
have that cover anymore. So this has been a massive task from our team to just build out how this is going to be. We've had a fantastic partnership with the CFL, who is still supporting the game. In fact, their largest role is the building itself. So they've taken their experience and their expertise from Touchdown Atlantic. They brought that to our game itself. And then all the other little pieces. We're bringing in a custom scoreboard, video board, because the one they use for baseball will be hidden behind our giant grandstand. So bringing in a massive video board, LED sideline boards, all it's the stuff that makes the game feel like the scale it should for a full regular season CFL game. And that's exactly what it'll be. The other advantage for us is we get to do some of the fun stuff you guys get to do in Winnipeg. We never get to do because we have a roof. So, we're
Yeah.
bringing in the fireworks and other, tricks and stuff we just never get to play with because we have a different type of venue, being inside.
Was it a challenge to get season ticket holders into that venue all combined, or there need to be special accommodations made?
Yeah, those are great questions. So first, we made this decision, um, cognizant of the fact that we have a very loyal and great fan base that are like season ticket holder base, I should say, that we knew we had to take care of. And one of the benefits of going to Victoria is we actually also know we have quite a lot of season ticket holders come from the island. In fact, so many that now that we've moved to these 4 o'clock starts, which have not just benefited families because you can get home in the summer, by 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's also benefited the fact that people can get on a ferry, they can come to the lower mainland. They can hop on a bus, take them right to the stadium, come to a game, and post game, they can get home the same night. They don't have to pay for a hotel. They don't have to, make a vacation out of going to a football game. And
Yeah.
that's been a huge thing. So that's increased our season ticket base on the island. So that's one part. The second part is knowing, as I say, we really wanted to take care of our season ticket holders. Right from day one, it was clear we're going to honor your season seat for this game, and you can either opt in, or if you choose to opt out because maybe you don't want to go to the island, or maybe you're unable to go to the island, or any of those things, we'll honor that game with a free playoff ticket. Now, we've been to the playoffs the last few years. We're confident in our team. We feel like that's the right decision to make. And it was fascinating to see how many people took us up on it because most people still wanted to come to this experience and they wanted that part of it. Then a lot of
Yes.
people said no. And what was great about that is we then were able to accommodate a lot of new fans from the island. And that was important to us too, right? Being able to make sure that people from Victoria or even up the island were able to buy a ticket and come to this game. And I'll tell you, the demand was insane. It sold out in under an hour, and that's not just me
Crazy.
blowing smoke. Like it legitimately sold out at under just over 50 minutes, which
Yeah.
I think blew all of our minds a little bit. So much so that we felt the need to bring more capacity. We're opening a little bit extra space up, but we're also going to host a viewing party across the street, like a watch party. So fans can
Awesome.
buy a cheaper ticket, but they can still feel like they're part of the experience. They're going to share some of the food and beverage with the stadium because it's literally across the street. We'll
Yeah.
bring some of our in-game elements over there, make it part of the experience. You still get to feel like you're part of Touchdown Pacific, and yeah, that's a big part of it. It's a good question because it was important for us to make sure that those season ticket holders were taken care of and felt like they were part of it. And then to your question about accommodation, we also have had some great buy-in from our partners. So having the city of Victoria as one of the partners on the project, they've done some phenomenal work to make this happen. The province, and then just last week we were able to secure a deal with BC Ferries because the last ferry that was scheduled for Saturday night was 9 p.m. But we all know in the CFL, sometimes these games can go a little long. It's a 4 o'clock start. We're hopeful you'll be done by 8 o'clock, but hey, maybe you go to overtime or
Yeah.
maybe there's, a little bit extra. Getting to that 9 o'clock was going to be tough. So they agreed, and we're very grateful for this. They agreed to move that 9 to a 10 o'clock sailing, and that means that there are a lot more people from the Lower Mainland who can come over same day and get
Mhm.
home, which is going to be awesome. So yeah, it all overall, the biggest learning for me is just how how much support and love there is for not just our team, not just the CFL, but the community part of it, right? People want to be a part of these experiences because they are doing so around people that they love and care about and the communities that they want it to experience in. Vancouver
Yeah,
or Victoria has bought in an incredible way. And I think this is going to be a beautiful showcase for them. We've also got a 2-day festival leading into it. So we're going to be people seeing Victoria from all across the country. And we know we've sold tickets across the country. We've
that's
sold
awesome.
tickets as far as Newfoundland. So it's
Yeah,
going to be awesome. It's going to be a celebration of the CFL, just like the Touchdown Atlantic games where no, we're not trying to convince Vancouver Island to get a team the way Touchdown Atlantic was trying to find a team in the Atlantic region. This is a BC Lions home game. These are our fans. This is our crowd. We're just trying to plant our flag a little bit deeper on the island. That's all.
yeah. Any thoughts on a 10th CFL team? Like, some people have said Victoria, some people have said Quebec City with Laval in their facility, maybe upgrade that. Any thoughts? Wally Bono says he wants to
I mean,
south
yeah,
in the States.
I, well, I don't know about that yet. We've seen that it didn't work last time. It might work again. I will say, I think we are definitely we're in a great position as a league. You can feel the momentum, especially in some of those core markets. You mentioned Toronto, and there are some markets that there is still growth and work to be done. And I think in some of those markets, it's happening. I mean, I'm really happy too to see. And of course, winning is a huge part of it. When you have a successful team, all of your, all we didn't talk about that when we were talking about what we were trying to do here. Winning helps. Let's just
Yeah,
put it. Let's just be blunt, right? When you
absolutely.
have a winning team, it is much easier to get new fans to buy in because people want to jump on that bandwagon. And then maybe they stay on the bandwagon long enough, they're lifelong fans. But winning helps. It's hard to build new fans when, in Edmonton, I'm sure right now it's hard to find new fans. You're just trying to keep the ones you've got. That's hard.
Absolutely.
So what I was going to say is Montreal is a great example though of a big market who has had some ups, had some downs. They have some new ownership there. They win a Grey Cup. They have seen fantastic crowds, but they got a small building. They're in a building that needs to grow. They are challenged by some of those limitations. So I think the CFL has a lot of different ways that it can adjust and shift. To answer your question, I think it'd be great to have a 10th team. I think there are lots of markets that could benefit from it. I'm not sure we're ready for it in Victoria, but I appreciate the love that it could get. And hey, you never know. We'll take all comers. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm a little lukewarm to Portland. Yeah.
Portland, interesting.
Yeah, I do like Wally Bono's idea. Like expanding to, 5, 6 teams like they did previously was a bit too much, a bit too
Yeah,
ambitious.
yeah.
And caution to the wind, but maybe one market might be a little easier to get off the ground in a city like that. I don't know.
I mean, I think there's a couple things that would be at play there, and I mean, and again, these are my opinions. Nobody else is here, but that's okay. I
Absolutely.
think that the schedule right now is slightly prohibitive for an American audience. I think that's a piece of it. We infringe a lot on the early season for the NFL. I
Yeah.
think that we start a little late. I think we should, if you shifted to make it work for an American audience, and you look at what the UFL is doing, you'd have to shift your schedule. You'd need to be starting, let's say, early March or late March even, and you'd need to be getting that Grey Cup presented end of October. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If not earlier. Frankly, for me, like and again, strictly my own opinion, I think that Labor Day should be the end of the season. I think that you should be going into playoffs following Labor Day. That would be a great window for me. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
spring, summer ball. Get rid of the fall part of it. I appreciate why it's in there and it's tradition and all those pieces. But for me, it's like, you know, sacred cows are meant to be slaughtered. And
Mhm.
sometimes you have to look at the cost benefit. And for me, it's like competing with the NFL is tough. Moving those games off of Sundays in the fall was a great decision, but it's tough. It's a hard thing to play against. And I know in our market, once the NHL starts up, they suck up a lot of oxygen. And it's hard depending on how that schedule balances out. And I'm sure it's the same in Winnipeg, right? Like if the Jets are good at the beginning of the year, they're going to get those big draws because that's where we are. That's where people,
Absolutely.
that is the big major sport, let's call it, that competes with the CFL in Canada.
Yeah, so that's always the conundrum. It's like, what do you want to go up against? The playoffs in the
Yeah, that's true.
NHL or the
That's true.
beginning of the season in the NHL? It's like,
Well, it depends on where you put your value, I think, is the hard part. Because you're right. Like we were concerned, let's say, when the Canucks were doing really well in the spring, because it was going to eat into our home opener and getting that
yeah,
crowd going. And you do want to get a good start to your year. But at the same time, there's also benefit to having full attention as your season ramps into the like home stretch, and those games really matter, you know. And again, in some markets, it's not as big a challenge, and
Yeah.
that's part of what makes the CFL beautiful is that there are so many different types of markets you have to, you know, contend with, and what their challenges and strategies are for how they draw an audience and all of those things. But you know, I think there's benefits and drawbacks on both sides. I'd be fascinated to see, you know, where it could grow and how it could change. I also think it's, you know, we're one of those leagues where tradition is such an important part of the fan base we have, but equally tradition can be prohibitive, let's say, to growing and new fans too sometimes, right? And you have to
Absolutely.
find that, you got to strike that balance. And that's what we talked about all the time here is like, you don't want to alienate your old fans in the pursuit of new fans, but you also don't want to close the doors so that fans don't feel comfortable coming through them because they
Yeah.
feel like there's no space left for them. You know what I mean?
Totally. Totally. I do think that either NHL battle is not a winning one, and it's the NFL audience that you have to worry about, especially with the young folks that you're trying to get attention with or for.
Yeah, it just comes down to who you think your bigger competitor is, and it's different. One is TV, right? And let's not undervalue the importance of the TV market. Like that's a huge part of what makes the CFL sustainable is the deal with TSN and being able to have
Absolutely.
those games broadcast. And if you lose that because you're competing again against, you know, the juggernaut of the NFL, that's hard, right? That's really hard.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one. It's funny. I had a good. I brought his name up earlier. Or a wide receivers coach Jason Tucker
Yeah.
was on our radio show a couple weeks back, and we host our radio show out at a couple local bars, different around the community, and on tap it's called, and it's we were having a conversation about it. I kind of asked him, you know, this is a guy who's played in the NFL, caught passes from Troy Aikman, played in the CFL, long time coach, knows both games, and we were laughing. I think I can't now recall who it was. Somebody was holding out for Dallas Cowboys training camp.
CD Lamb.
Yeah, it was. It was CeeDee Lamb. And we joked about the cost of his fine, right? Per day. It was like $50,000 per day.
Yeah.
And we were kind of laughing about that just as a figure. And he laughed. He goes, well, hey, if you had two TV networks competing for the CFL, we'd have the same salary because that's the only difference at the end of the day
Yeah.
is it's just about the number of eyeballs on your product. And then the cost just grows. But he also said, he said, you know, if we had the same ability just to compensate like half our players the way that they're compensating them, players would pick the CFL over the NFL because it's a more exciting game to play too. It's just about eyeballs. That's the biggest piece. So again,
Absolutely.
markets, you grow another market, maybe you get some more eyeballs. Who knows?
I'm absolutely ecstatic that the CFL playoffs, I think, and the Grey Cup are being broadcast on CTV, a national
Yeah, I think
broadcast.
that's great too.
Like that's a game changer.
Absolutely.
Like I can't believe that hasn't happened earlier, especially with TSN and CTV being the same company. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think part of it is that is a testament though to the quality and to the growth of the CFL in the last couple of years. You know what I mean? Coming out of COVID, which was a hard thing. This is a league that didn't play for a year, right?
yeah.
And in lots of markets, that could have been and almost was a death knell, right? And the ability for this league to bounce back and to grow, and again, in certain markets, it has been a faster rebound than others. That is true. But I think as an overall product, you can see there is an excitement there. And hey, like everything helps, right? So gambling helps, being able to find different ways for fans to engage helps. Those all are parts of it. But you're right; it is a testament to the fact that there is an audience for this game, and I hope I agree with you. I think it's fantastic. I also think it's awesome that we're broadcast on CBS in the states for many of
Yes.
our games throughout the season. That's fantastic too, because again, it's just new eyeballs, right? And
Absolutely.
and anybody who finds it and falls in love with it, that's a win.
Totally. Totally. Where are y'all in your planning of the Grey Cup? Speaking of playoff times, CTV and the big show. I don't even know. Is
Totally.
it still the Great Canadian Drunk? For years, it was called that, and I don't think it's called that anymore. Like, is that an underground
Certainly
thing?
not in the circles I'm working in. I don't think it's formally called that. No,
I'm aging
I have yet to
myself,
hear that
man. I'm
one.
aging
That's
myself.
okay. No, I mean, hey, it's the biggest party of the year. Let's put it that way. And all I can tell you is this: there has been a lot of hard work that was happening here before I even got here. So
Yeah.
I started over a year ago, and from the minute the bid was accepted, from the minute it was announced that BC was going to host the 111th Grey Cup in 2024, work started, and we have a fantastic Grey Cup team. Again, I don't know how familiar you are with how it works in terms of the organizational part of it, but traditionally, you have an organizing sort of department that's brought up from, an event team that builds this out. You have an executive director. Ours is Riley Witchar, who's fantastic. Previously ran hockey, the World Juniors for many years for Hockey Canada. So he is a very experienced when it comes to big Canadian sporting events all over the world, mind you. He put them on in multiple places, but he knows what he's doing, and he's brought in a fantastic team that's putting on what we truly believe will be the largest Grey Cup festival ever. Not only because we think we're going to get a lot of people here to see it, but it's got the largest footprint. So they're taking over because, again, as you know, the Grey Cup is the game. But the Grey Cup itself is the festival. It's a week-long celebration of the Canadian football game. It's a week-long celebration of Canada itself. Every team comes and participates. We're taking over the convention center here, both sides of it. So again, if you're familiar with the Vancouver Convention Center, it has sort of these two massive buildings right on the water, and both sides are being fully activated. So one of the things we're really excited about is it'll all be centralized. Different markets, again, it's you do different things, but what we really wanted to do is create a hub where fans, regardless of where they come from in the country, know, hey, I go down to this area, I'm going to have a good time. There's going to be free activities for me, there's going to be paid activities for me, there's going to be something for everybody. We've got zip lines. We're going to run a zip line across a section of water, like from one building to the other building, right on the harbor there. We've got a giant zip line. It's going to run you all the way down the hill. This is the same area where like the Olympic torch is from 2010. So like this is a place that knows how to put on a festival. And as I say, Riley's team's doing a fantastic job. I can't spill too many secrets because more news will be coming as we get closer. But we know a lot of it. Look, the Jonas Brothers are going to play halftime. That's a big name. It's an important thing when you think about how do you grow that audience. You find different people for, especially on the TV side of it, because not everybody's going to fit in the building. But we are going to fit in 54,000 plus people. It's going to be it's going to be packed in there. It's going to be great. And then we at the end of the day, you can bring all of those things into play, but the people that make the Grey Cup really what it is are the fans. And I experienced Grey Cup last year in Hamilton, and as my first experience as part of a club going there, what blew me away was just the love and support for the CFL as a whole, whether your team was in it or not. And look, there were a lot of guys there in blue and gold. There were a lot of people there, supporting the Alouettes, but there were an equal number to both of those two fan bases in everybody else, right? And the fans come out. There are people who have made this like multi-generational traditions, right? To come to Grey Cup is the thing they do every year with their family, with their friends. There's these clubs, they've all got matching jackets and outfits, and it's awesome. It is this wonderful celebration of Canada. And I think if you haven't experienced Grey Cup, you have to at some point in your life, you've got to get to a Grey Cup and see it. Whether you're, again, a CFL fan, whether you have a team or not, it's worth experiencing, because it's special. It really is special. And yes, we have lots of fun stuff. I can't pull the curtain back on too many of the things. I don't even know most of the things because, again, it's top secret up there, but what I have been showing looks fantastic, and we're going to continue to roll out some more and more of those things as we get closer to it. I will say there are still a few tickets available, so here's my little pitch to those people out there in Winnipeg. I know your team's not where you thought they would be, but this is the CFL. They could go on a run, buy those Grey Cup tickets, put a little good karma in there. Maybe they make the game, and hey, even if they don't, we all showed up to see your team play. We all watched the Grey Cup in the years they were there. Come support the league. Get your butts out here. I guarantee you one thing. You're not going to need a winter coat. You're not going to need those winter boots. It's going to be November in BC, in Vancouver. It might be a little rainy, but that's the worst of it. You don't have to shovel rain. It'll be nice, and all the events are going to be indoors. It's going to be beautiful.
And to add on to that, I was looking at flights today on WestJet. There's a flight right now for 207 from Winnipeg to BC.
What are you waiting for?
Isn't that crazy? That's to go from Tuesday
Get your butt out here. Let's go
until the Monday after. So it's affordable.
Awesome.
It's affordable.
Hey, you will have a great time. Anyone, I swear, I'm not just blowing smoke. I swear, you will have a great time. I know I did last year, and I was working part of it because we run a party room, right? Every team hosts a party room. So again, even if your team's not in it, your team will be here in some form or another. You can come celebrate with other fans of your team, no matter where you are from. And it's awesome. It's really special. Grey Cup's
it is something special.
It is 100%, and it's super. It's just such a great Canadian tradition that continues to grow.
Yeah. Does your game day experience or role change for the Grey Cup, with it being, I guess, a CFL run neutral site game? Neutral, even if the all
Yeah, a
media.
little bit. My job definitely does. Our job as a team definitely does. So the Grey Cup is a CFL neutral site game wherever it's played. Even if the Lions are in it, even if it next year when it's in Winnipeg, even if the Bombers are in it, it is still a CFL game.
Yeah.
And both teams are treated the same. They're given the same facility. They're given the same time on field. All the things. You lose the quote unquote home field advantage piece to some degree. Yeah, you're still sleeping in your own bed. Yeah, you still got your own fans for the majority in the building. There's still a home field advantage, no matter what the CFL will or won't tell you.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So you want to be in it. You especially want to be in it when you're hosting. That's the goal. But for my team, for myself, I do a very similar job. I'm still responsible for calling the game, making sure that the game functions. It's just the stuff that goes in the game is all CFL, right? So their partners activate and their elements. And to be honest with you, it's not that different than what we do in the playoffs. So even if you host a playoff game, the
Yeah.
CFL owns the playoff games. They come in, they operate the games. Someone's sitting next to me from the CFL, making sure whatever I'm doing meets what they're looking to do. They bring in their own pageantry, their own content, all those kind of things. So from that perspective, yeah, it's very different. The biggest difference is that it's a massive game. So like again, I will not actually probably see or experience anything outside of the stadium at Grey Cup because my week there will be building and prepping that whole game. So
Yeah.
there's a huge pregame element that goes into it that this fantastic company PRP comes in and for them it's a home game too because Patrick Roberge his company's based here in Vancouver. They do the Grey Cup presentations, let's call them, of pregame, postgame for the actual trophy ceremony, and they do halftime. They produce all that.
Well.
They're based in Vancouver, which is great. So it's like a home game for them. But I work with them. And we kind of do this handoff. The things I would traditionally worry about pregame, I don't have to worry about. They take care of. They make sure the player intros happen. They make sure that the anthem happens. All of the pageantry, all of the bells and whistles. They do that, and then he hands it back over, and then the game happens. But also just the stuff that goes into the stadium. Like I said, we have to turn the stadium into a Grey Cup event. So it's going to look different. It's going to have different pageantry, brand new stuff on all of the walls and the banners and everything that goes into making the venue look and feel the way it does. CFL takes care of all that. So that all has to happen. There's rehearsals all week. You got to figure out how the heck we're getting these Jonas Brothers out to center field and getting them off and all the moving pieces. And we didn't even talk about that with 50 Cent, but like that was the hardest part of 50 Cent was just the scale of it. We had, I think, 15 like F-150 size trucks pulling around stage units and pulling around speakers.
Yeah.
You got to get it all out there in like 4 minutes, and you got to get it all off there in about 4 minutes because there's a 14-minute halftime that everything has to fit inside of. And anyway, that's how. So all that stuff happens, and yeah, it's like putting on a massive show. So from that perspective, my role is different because I'm I'm collaborating with the CFL.
Yeah.
And kind of being told what they want me to do, and that's fine. I become part sort of their employee or their tool
Mhm.
for the week. Whereas obviously in our home games, I got a lot more say in what we do, so that'll be different. But it's exciting all the same. And of course, I'm the conduit because all of my people are doing the job, right? So making sure that all of my guys fit into what they need, right, and understand what they need, and have the ability to yeah, fulfill their game.
Yeah. Anything that you're most excited about or see as the biggest challenge so far?
From a Grey Cup side, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's the scale of it. It's massive. I mean, one of the again, we have a fantastic building. But there's two things happening. One, we have a building that is right next door to a hockey rink that has a league that decided to play a hockey game the same night as the Grey Cup, which blows my mind. But we don't have to get into that.
Yeah. Oh, we
They're also
can.
playing a game
We
the night
can.
before. Yeah, I don't. I mean, hey, from an NHL perspective, I understand why you have the Canucks on a home, um, like a home stand the week of Grey Cup because there's going to be a bunch of people in Vancouver who will probably come and watch your game, especially if they're from out of town. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Why you would hold it the same night as Canada's biggest sporting event is either arrogance or ignorance, as far as I'm concerned, and we're gonna find out. But I think so. The challenge being, we're in a small space. We have a stadium right downtown. We got buildings all around us. We don't have a bunch of extra space, let's put it that way, to
Yeah.
like fill out with the stuff you need to put on a Grey Cup. You have to fit it into the thing. So that's been one of the you can call it a challenge, but it's part of how you make this work is the Tetris of it. How do you fit all these things in? You get in a big TSN show, right? You got multiple trucks, you got all the cameras, you got Skycam, you got all of it. So all of that has to fit into that building. Again, the CFL takes care of that. It's been fantastic. We collaborate with them. We want to work with them. And then the other part is, and this is, just the truth of it, FIFA's coming into our building and we've already started renovation. So there's also just the reality of we're in this constant evolution of, sometimes a construction project doesn't get done when they say it might get done, and it goes a little over, and the room you thought you might have access to is not there anymore. So that's going to be a challenge for us for the next couple of years, until FIFA's come and gone in 2026. But the pain will be worth it in the long run, right? We'll get some renovations out of it and all those kind of things. So yeah, I think those are the biggest challenges, just navigating those things. But the CFL and their events team do a fantastic job of they know what they're doing, they know how to do it, they bring in the right people to do it, and then whoever the host team is, our job is to support them as best we can. And they're seeing way too much of me because I'm working with them on Touchdown Pacific too. So this year they got BC Lions double dipping, so it'll be good.
Do you get your hands dirty in the FIFA stuff?
Not for FIFA, no. That's a different beast altogether. I'll be busy with our own schedule because we're going to be playing football at the same time. Like that's the question mark is how that's good. We know we're hosting a certain number of games. We won't be in the building for a certain period of time. The only advantage for football is you could go on a 3-game road trip and pop a couple bye weeks in there, but the schedule coming out of that might be a bit heavy. So, and even this year, I mean, I haven't had a home game since July 13th. You know what I mean? Like my next home game this weekend, we've been off for like a month and a half, which has been great. Don't get me wrong. We're prepping TDP, and Touchdown Pacific needed all the help to get it. That's how this works.
Yeah.
But it is a weird schedule. We were kind of joking in one of our team meetings today. It was kind of like, you guys all remember how to do this? Because we haven't done it in a while. It feels like the first game of the year again.
Absolutely.
You got to get the rust off. And we're looking forward to it. Your Bombers will be in town. So
I know. I'm very excited. I can't wait. So with the grass for FIFA, is that gonna stay for the BC Lions? Or is they're just gonna
No, that'll be temporary. Yeah. It's too hard a venue, I think, to put in permanent grass because you just don't have natural daylight, and the cost to bring in those like UV lights that like Tottenham have and stuff is just not something that, I mean, we don't want to pay for it. I don't think the Whitecaps want to pay for it. BC Place certainly doesn't want to pay for it. So it's one of those things where no, it's definitely going to happen. They actually had natural grass in there 2 weeks ago when Wrexham was here. They laid it down and it looked like it worked really well. They certainly didn't have any kind of playing condition issues. So there's clearly a way to do it in a temporary way. So we'll see how exactly they operate. But no, we'll be back on our regular turf, and we've got some great turf. We're quite happy with the turf at BC Place. That's not the issue.
Yeah. So let's talk about the BC Lions then. We don't have to delve
too
deep, but y'all are on a bit of a losing streak right now. Y'all just lost to the 2 worst teams in the West. Any concerns?
Yeah, one of them being your team, you mean? Yes. No, there's no concerns. I think the CFL is one of the great things about the CFL is you're never too far ahead and you're never too far behind. You know what I mean? This is a league of 9 teams. It's in the West right now. There are plausible scenarios where the Edmonton Elks make the playoffs. And that is just the reality of this league. And that's what's exciting about it. It's what I say all the time to casual fans. It's like, hey, don't turn it off too early and don't check out too early in the year because you never know what's coming. I've been, what I'm talking about. Those games that look out of reach and all of a sudden they're not out of reach. The season's the same thing. Yes, obviously there's always frustration. You work for a professional sports organization that, your success is based on wins and losses. So the losses hurt, right? And they are frustrating and they're hard. And you have to, I think it's easier on our side of the office, let's put it, to kind of, move on to the next one. Football ops has a lot harder time doing that because it's their livelihoods. These guys are out there in the league that, it's a short time you get to play this game. Let's put it that way. And when the window's there, you want to take advantage of it. But no, we don't get too high. We don't get too low. As a fan of the BC Lions, is it hard to watch them lose 3 in a row? Yes, it's frustrating. Certainly some of the ways they've lost was frustrating as a fan because it's like you have no business losing to Winnipeg the way you lost to Winnipeg. That's a game you should have at least been in. And then it just wasn't there. And as I said, when we talked about it earlier, I mean, that was a grind out kind of game. And it was tough on our side. So I do the game day part. My department also, we do all of our events, and we host every year a season ticket viewing party. That happened to be the game that we had our season ticket viewing party at our facility. We had,
Shoot.
almost, 700, 600, 900 fans. I don't even know how many. It was almost 1,000 people out on our practice field, lawn chairs, picnic blankets, watching this on a big screen, burgers and popcorn. Everyone's having a great time. And then womp womp, right? So, but what I will tell you is the fans went home having had a great time with people that love the same thing they love, and they had a good time.
Yeah.
They all asked us one simple question: could you pick a different opponent next year? We said, sure, we'll work on it. You know what I mean? It's scheduling is what it is, but that's how it works, right? And again, any team in this league can win or lose to any team in this league, and that's what makes the CFL fantastic. And look, I will say, from someone who has watched my team lose to the Bombers in the Western Final in the last 2 seasons, not something we are overly concerned about. The record so far for the Bombers. It's nice to see, the that familiar foe struggle always,
Yeah.
but we're also not going to get ahead of ourselves and start beating our chest and say we're the best in the West, because the reality is anybody can be. Saskatchewan's right there. Saskatchewan's had a great bounce back. We know it's going to be a fight right to the end, but our objective is the same. We want to host the West Final, and we want to host the Grey Cup. And that's what we want to do. We're still in a position to do that. Again, the sky is not falling. We've lost 3 in a row, and we're in second place in the West. That's the reality of it, right? You go on a 5-game win streak, you lose a couple, that's how
Yeah.
it goes. We win a couple more here in August, and we'll be in good shape. What I will tell you this: we have not lost at home. I take a little bit of pride in that.
That's
We are
strong.
that's the only part I can contribute to.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
part I could just sit on the couch and watch and, scream at the TV. At least at a home game, I can dial up that fader like we talked about.
To
Try to
11.
get that crowd up to 11 when we need it, and it will be a different experience, I guarantee you, for the Bombers coming in here, than it was for them a couple weeks ago with their home cooking. Because I know Bomber fans in that building are loud.
Yeah.
Lions fans are going to be loud too. Hey, we're opening the upper deck. It's going to be great. So,
Oh, that's gonna be crazy.
and look, one of the best games of the year last year was that final game between those two teams last year. And yes, we lost in overtime, but it was a fantastic football game. There's nothing you can take away
That
from that
was
part of it. It
insane.
made the difference, but it was a great
That
game,
was
right? So
insane. And there was that long bomb at the end of the game. I can't remember which was it Hollins who caught that ball and
yeah.
probably should have ran to the end zone.
Oh no, that was Dominic Rhymes.
That's
Dominic
right.
Rhymes probably should have dropped to a knee so we could kick a goal. But you learn that's football, right? He's
Yeah.
got a split-second decision between trying to be the hero, and in the end, he ends up being the GOAT. But that's how it goes. That's football. And like I say,
Yeah.
so many things have to go right for you to succeed, and one or two things can go wrong for you to fail. That's how sports is, right? And that's the
Absolutely.
hard part about it. That's the
Like,
hard part about it. Like, it just,
how as an
sends
athlete
the
do you
brakes.
turn that off? Like you see the end zone, you're gonna go for the end zone. You can't
Exactly.
just be like, should I go?
No,
No,
exactly.
you go.
Exactly. No, 100%. And I think, again, being a little bit on the inside, you can also see just how hard these guys work. And that's not just this team. I know every team in this league works really, really hard. These guys care. They work incredibly hard for it. And so, yeah, it hurts even more when, like you say, one of those little mistakes costs you so much, right? The stakes are so high. Even the game last night with the Elks,
Oh,
when you go, like if you were to watch it back, there are so many moments where that game turns the other way, right? And something doesn't go your way. That the penalty where a rookie hits the punt or the kicker, and he just doesn't know the rule, or isn't that moment of decision making is wrong in a
yeah.
split second, the game goes a different way. And that's how it goes. So it's hard, but it is part of why we love it, right?
Especially the CFL. Oh man.
Exactly.
Is there anything specific do you think the Lions had to do to beat the Bombers?
Well, they should score. That would be a great starting point. It didn't work out
Don't
very
make the
well for
laugh.
them last game when they didn't. No, it's fair. Look, I
Yeah.
mean, hey, we put 2 shutouts up on the board last year, and our guys were running around very proud of themselves. So I
Yeah.
give Winnipeg full credit. As a defense, that's not an easy thing to do in professional football.
Yeah.
The Lions know that's not going to happen again. They're going to go out with a different plan. And look, we're down VA right now. He might play. I'm not in the training room. I'm not going to say whether he is or isn't. He was, he traveled with them to Edmonton. We'll see how he is, but that makes a difference whether you've got
Yeah.
VA in there or not. But I also think that if he's not in there and Dolagala's out there, or they go to some combo of him and Bryce, like the truth is these guys now have also had a start under Dolagala's had his first start of the year. That's a hard thing to pick up halfway through a year as the backup and jump into. We saw how great he was
Yes.
in Saskatchewan in that backup role last year, but it wasn't instant. It took a little while to kind of get the offense around your style and what you're used to doing. I mean, look at Edmonton. The difference between McLeod Bethel Thompson and Trey Ford is the same thing. Like, that's two completely different athletes behind you who do completely different things. And it's too simple, in my opinion, to be like, oh, well, Trey Ford's the answer. It's like, no, Trey Ford and all of the other players who are able to set him up to succeed, right? And it is what it is and how it fits together. What do I think the Lions have to do to beat the Bombers? Yes, they have to score. They also have to stop the run, which is something that I know there's been a focus on this year because that was something that's hurt them in the last couple of years. You've got an absolute animal coming out of the backfield.
Yeah.
But equally, we need to establish our run. I think Stanback's due for a breakout game. I thought he played really well in Edmonton, but
Absolutely.
he's due for one of those kind of games. And we know he likes to play against the Bombers. He certainly did that in the Grey Cup last year.
Mhm.
So I think that's one thing they'll be looking for. And then I think it's just going to come down to all the same cliches you've always heard. It's about those turnovers. It's about taking advantage of those opportunities when they're there. We talked about last year's last game of the year. From my perspective, watching that game, it was a tale of two halves. The Lions had them in the first half. They were in control of that football game, made a couple simple mistakes, and a really experienced team in the Bombers took advantage of it. The
Yeah.
Lions have done that to other teams even this year, where they haven't necessarily been the best team, but they took advantage of opportunities when they were presented to them. When somebody puts it out there on a platter and you don't take it, it may not come back around. So yeah,
Yeah.
they got to go through the doors when they open there and do the best they can. I think there's going to be obviously a lot of pressure on them. So it's going to be about how they start. But I think they're also going to be benefiting. And again, this isn't just me. They're going to benefit from that home crowd. And I think it will be nice for them to kind of have a home game. They haven't played, like I said here, since like literally a month ago tomorrow. That's a long time without a
Yeah.
home game, without your own crowd, without your own facilities, all of it. Right. So,
You need some of that home cooking. And I do agree with you. William
no,
Stanback, I think, is
100%.
the biggest key of that game. If they can get that running game against the Bombers, and the Bombers, I think, are still the worst team against the run. If they can get that going against the Bombers, that'll slow down the pass rush and that'll give Dolagala a little bit of time because he's not as mobile as VA. So
No,
get that running game
No,
going.
and
I think
VA is
that'll
a
give some
different,
time.
yeah, VA special in that sense of it, but also like Dolagala is like the tallest guy on our football team. He might be the tallest guy in the CFL. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't even have to, like seeing over that O line. He's got, and there were one or two passes last night, or I guess we're what are we, Monday. So yeah, Sunday, last night in Edmonton, where he overthrew guys on like a 40-yard bomb, right? And you're like, this guy's got a cannon. If we
Yeah.
just get the cadence right, we just get the rhythm right, if you know what I mean? Because it's a new
Yeah.
quarterback, all of those things. But if they get that right, he's great. And I'm happy he's the backup because I think, no quarterback, let's just say in this league, is safe. You always have to have number two ready to go. You guys have a fascinating situation there in Winnipeg with how you guys have been using your two guys. And I think, the Lions are in a similar position. David Mackey doing our short yardage has been an interesting wrinkle. It's worked out for us. He was the only touchdown last night,
Yeah.
but I think Dolagala is a great number two option. And if he's who we need to put out there on Sunday night, then I'll make sure it's nice and loud for him, or nice and quiet for him on offense, and nice and loud whenever you guys are out there.
All right. I'll yell my best from here to balance that out. I'm gonna actually put your Edmonton hat on for a second. I know we talked about the Elks
Okay.
for a little bit, but they're coming in with new ownership, going from private to a community
Yeah.
owned. As an Edmontonian, is that sad? Is that happy, optimistic, both? A
Yeah.
mix?
So I don't want to correct you. It's the other way around. They're going from community to private.
Well, what did I
But
say?
you just flipped them. That's all. I just want to
Oh,
make sure
sorry.
you're in the right way. They're
Yes,
usually
flip,
the
please.
private, but you're right because it is going to be a huge change. I mean, this is a club that has been the way it has been organizationally for a very long time, ever, and a team that I can say this as a former Edmontonian. The old joke is, how many Edmontonians does it take to screw in a light bulb, right? And the answer is none. They just sit in the dark and tell you how great the light bulb used to be. Because the City of Champions is all about the past. This is a team, the city, that needs to move forward. They need to embrace the new identity. They need to embrace the success that is ahead of them. And I think a new ownership is a great step in that direction. I think that, you know, I think they are doing a lot of the things that they were not doing right for a couple years. I think they are starting to do right. They're doing things the right way, and they're learning lessons again from us, from other teams that have had success. They're implementing the kind of incremental growth that's needed, and something that Edmonton for a very long time never had to worry about. Right? They never worried about their fan base because
Yeah.
they had it, and over time they got into some habits, let's say, like any organization does, based on what was working. And then once those things stopped working, they didn't really know how to get back to being, you know, innovative and being creative and finding new things to do. I think they're doing that. I think that what they're doing in their game presentation in the building is fresh and new and
Yeah.
getting fans excited. And that was a hard gig to do, because how do you keep your fans excited when you can't win a football game? But they're doing good things now. The football side of it, clearly, as I said, I think we all can agree Trey Ford is a revelation. He's something special. If they can
Mhm.
nurture and get him to a place where he can win them football games consistently, and they can build around that and build a core of players who are dedicated to that organization, like those great organizations in the CFL have, then they're going to start to move in the right direction. They have all the tools, right? They really do. The one piece
Yeah.
they're missing is leadership at that level. That they were missing it, have been missing it. They have an opportunity here. I think it would be great. It'd be awesome for the league to have. And I mean, speaking from experience, just that little like wind at your back you get from an owner that cares and genuinely has the team's best interests at heart and isn't there because, hey, it's a great place to put his money or whatever. That is a huge thing, and it
Yeah.
matters because it gives you a foundation, and once you have that foundation you can build on it. I think it'll be good for Edmonton. It'll be a good change for sure.
I got to go to a game at Commonwealth for the first time this season, and it was a
Nice.
great mix of old school because of that building just has old school charm. Like you see
Absolutely.
in
Oh
that
yeah.
concourse, it smells like an old building. Like you can still smell the cigarette smoke in the cement from the
From all those
60s
years.
and 70s. Absolutely. So there's that charm. And at the same time, there's this great football environment that you can see the possibilities of it being back again. Like there is a little less than 20,000, but if they got to the 30,
Yeah.
35,000, that would be a great stadium to be in again. It'll be rocking, and you combine the old
Yeah.
school with the future of the team. Uh, so
Well,
yeah,
and they have a similar challenge that we do in the fact that they have a venue that right now is too big for them. You know what I mean? And the
yes,
hard part of that is you get caught in this position where you're trying to chase an environment that isn't really attainable with the numbers you're turning out. And I think they made a great decision this year to close the upper bowl. It's the
yeah,
same decision we've made, and no surprise that Rick Hollisher there as the president making that decision saw the success here in BC from all of his time here, knows what works.
yeah,
And I think it was hard for some fans to, especially those fans who've been there a long time, maybe with seats up there for a long time, to accept. But the truth is, at the end of the day, you want to create the best possible atmosphere for the fans in the building, for the players on the field, and just the overall experience. You do that. That's step one. You create a good atmosphere. You create a good energy. It snowballs, like we talked about. You grow an audience by building narrative, by building a story that they can buy into. And they're going to
mhm,
do that by meeting new people, being shoulder to shoulder with a full roll instead of 10 seats between people like it was up top. You know what I mean? And just bring the energy there. And then, hey, you get to reward yourself like we have started to here when you are able to see the growth and you get those big games. And it isn't just bringing in 50 Cent or LL Cool J, because we have opened the upper bowl multiple times.
yeah,
And we did it, many times last year too. That is the indication of the progression of what that is. And I think for them, I think they're going to see the benefits of it over time. But you're right, that building's got so much legacy and so much history in it, and so does that club. And that's the other hard part, right? Like, that's a team that's celebrating 75 years.
yeah,
Mixed mixed narrative in the last couple years. The name change is a huge thing for a fan base to fully embrace, and that's the truth of it. Between you and me, I think it was the right decision. I think it was overdue,
mhm,
but it doesn't mean it's easy, because, like, like all sports, at the end of the day, what is sports? It's a community experience, right? We invest a lot of emotional energy in these teams. We buy into it. We buy the merch. We buy the car flags or whatever else. You pimp out your basement man cave or whatever you want to call it in
Yeah.
the colors of the team you cheer for. You make it. You make the investment in that club because you're part of the community that supports it. Whether you are in the world, I'm an Oilers fan. I live in Vancouver. I'll walk around proudly with an Oilers jersey on here because I know that it says something to the people in this community that I'm not with them on that one. You know what I mean? I'm with somebody else, and I'm part of that group, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of the safe space where some of those like human instinct, like animosity, us versus them, can be like exercised in a safe place, And as a person who, now works in an environment that's all about cultivating and harnessing that and unleashing it in the right way in the venue, that's a huge thing. And I think for Edmonton, the growing pains are still showing, but they're getting there. So yeah, as a former Edmontonian and as a kid who grew up cheering for the green and gold, let's call them, I'm happy to see some success. And look, at the end of the day, nothing is more important to the CFL than every team in it finding success,
Yeah.
because every team that that is struggling, it affects everything else. This is a small league. This is not the NFL. You can't have a Chicago Cubs in the CFL. It doesn't work. You have to have all those markets clicking in their own way, right? And in different venues and in different sizes and whatever else, but it's got to work. And look, if Edmonton had the Princess Auto Stadium, we'd have a different conversation about how hard it would be to fill it because it's
Yeah.
a different venue, right? Commonwealth will always look half empty because it's massive. That's just the truth of
Huge.
it. So, but it is good. It is good. Yeah, I mean, you've been there, so I haven't been there since a lot of the renovations either. It was an old lady when I was there. Now it's gotten some facelift, so
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right.
it's got a few. Well, it's not. Yeah, I mean, you're sitting in one of the jewels of this league. You and Saskatchewan are sitting in the two. I mean, again, as someone who literally, puts the show on in a building, we can appreciate, the benefit of a stadium that's full and pretty and looks like what it does. You got all the bells and whistles. So you got a great team over there doing what I do there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I, I can say a few things about Bomber fans once in a while, but it's a CFL, right?
We should leave on a good note, shouldn't we? Or no?
Yeah, I kind of spoiled it there at the end. I
Uh,
spoiled it. You want the truth? I can give you the truth for a second. I had
yeah,
a I had
please.
a member of my team on your sideline and had a fan chuck a beer at him. So we know it can get hot and heavy in certain markets.
I can believe
But
that. I can believe that. It
yeah,
wasn't
I bet
me,
you
but I
can.
can believe that.
And it was not you. No, no. Look, at the end of the day, like we just said, that is part of. We don't want that. We don't want people being assaulted,
Yeah.
but we want fan bases that are passionate. We want them to be invested because that benefits all of us, and it creates a great atmosphere across the league. So I'd rather that than a disengaged and uninterested fan base. So
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this thing that the CFL, I don't know if it's across franchises, but I've struggled to find that new audience. And it's amazing to watch like teams like the Toronto Raptors back in the day, their focus was new Canadians and women.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
you can see a strong female, sorry if that's the wrong term, women base really growing in the CFL. So hopefully, the CFL has found a strategy to grow with new Canadians and the female fan base as well.
Well, I definitely think that's a focus out here. I think the new Canadian part, especially because we have such a large new Canadian population, and not just new Canadian, but like second and third generation Canadians who just have never been marketed to, have never been
Yeah.
invited in. And
Yeah.
that's the big thing is it's about opening those doors, right? And saying, hey, this is something you might enjoy. And it's different maybe than what you're used to, but it's cool. It's different. It's an exciting thing. And I think we're seeing that. I mean, look, we've got the first full-time Punjabi radio broadcasting our every
Yes.
game this year, which is fantastic because we have a massive Punjabi community out here. Punjabi hockey day or hockey night in Canada, Punjabi started out here. We know that those are opportunities to grow and to find new fans. And you're right, the women part of it, um, just audiences that were for a very long time wrongfully considered outside the demographic,
Yeah.
right? And that's the piece that has and needs to continue to change is the recognition that like if you don't create safe space for as many different people as possible, all you're doing is hurting your bottom dollar at the end of the day. Like,
Totally.
you can have all the conversations you want about woke and doing all these things and all these hot button political terms people want to chuck around. But at the end of the day, all I care about is, do you want to come in and experience something that we think is really cool? Right?
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you've ever seen a CFL game or if you think you know everything about it. At the end of the day, I want to sit a space where you can come with your family or on your own and have a great time. Like, that's what my objective is, right? And I think that when you embrace that and you actually put a focus on who those people are and where they are and going out to where they are and meeting them halfway, that's where you find success, right?
Yeah.
And yes, there's a dollar factor attached to it, but at the end of the day, you know, that's only part of the equation.
Yeah, and I called the Grey Cup the Great Canadian Drunk, and not totally in jest, because that was what was part of the CFL being part of, for lack of a better term, Canadiana. Being part of the
Yeah,
Canadian fabric was this, and CFL was a huge part of that when I was a kid. Grey Cup was a
totally.
national thing that was covered on the news, on the daily, not just on sports channels. Back in those days, you didn't even have a TSN. That's how old I am. But any which way.
Yeah, it was monoculture. It was all you had. You watch the CBC, and that's where it was.
Oh
And you could
my
barely see the
goodness.
numbers on the field.
That's how bad it was.
No, it's
But
true. It's growing. It's growing, and you have to keep doing that. And the CFL's done, I think, a really good job of that. And it goes beyond
yeah,
just the tokenism of it or just saying it. Like, you actually have to do, you actually have to put in the effort to do it. And I think that that is happening. We have more women working in football ops in the CFL, than we've ever had, and it's
yeah,
continuing to grow every single year. And I know that because facilities need to be shifted and changed. We need more female locker rooms and spaces for people to be comfortable and safe to do their jobs that we never even thought about before. Because why would they be? There was an assumption made. There was an
yeah,
expectation that was different, but it's changing, right? We have Tanya as one of the on our coaching staff, and she's a fantastic ambassador, not only for women in sport, but for football, because she's a football coach at the end of the day. It
yeah,
doesn't matter what her gender is or how she identifies, none of those things. But we're also always looking for those things. I only say that because Tanya's also hosting a women's flag clinic for us
nice.
this week. And again, opportunities to grow. We know that more women are interested in playing the game, not just watching it. We want to
Yeah,
find opportunities for them to be part of that too. And people from all over the country. There's this thing that I know they used to do in Edmonton because they did it growing up. We do it here. We call it Football 101, and it's like an introductory course for people who want to learn about the game and be able to experience the game, right? And you come in, you do a classroom session. In our case, you're lucky enough to be able to do it with BC football Wall of Famer Jamie Terrace, right, two-time Grey Cup
sweet.
champion,
Yeah,
and he hosts it, and he teaches you football, basically, literally the 101s of it. If you've never seen a CFL game, what's it? How we break it all down. In the
yeah.
old days, that was only for women. That was the only introduction. Was like, come drink some wine. I think in Edmonton at one point, and I don't want to. I mean, I might be slightly, I may not get the exact quoting right, but it used to be like footballs and heels was like the kind of branding around it. It was brutal in how it was marketed, right?
Yeah.
But now that's not, like, football 101 for us is open to everybody. And we want to invite everybody to come and learn this game. And again, as many different ways as you can open the door, that's where you're going to find that success, right? You have
Absolutely.
to create a space, as I say, but you got to welcome them in too. You can't expect them to just walk through on their own because they've got 1,000 other reasons not to.
Yeah.
You got to find them reasons to come in,
Especially in a
and
gate-driven
then
game.
hopefully you keep them.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing as theater, same as any live events,
That's
pretty
right.
much, other than the NHL.
Absolutely.
Is just getting those people
Absolutely.
out of their homes and
Well, and the challenge the NHL has is the reverse, which is that their doors aren't open because they don't have space to accommodate everybody, or have made a decision not to be able to do so because of how they're priced. Right? We have the
oh
luxury, and I think of it that way, as being a family affordable like sport.
yeah,
And let's hope that never changes. Right? Being able to get kids, and we have a great program here called the Quarterback Club, where the kid is the season ticket holder and their parents are the add-ons. So
that's
the kid
awesome.
gets to wear like the lanyard that says they're a season ticket holder. The account is in the kid's name, and
Heck
then you're
yeah,
building that relationship that they're going to carry forward, right? As they get
yeah,
older, maybe they stay on as season ticket holders. A lot of them do. We've got adults who are bringing their kids who are, would have been part of the same kind of program. So yeah, opening
amazing.
the door as many different ways you can, bringing people in, trying to diversify the way in which we present the game,
Yeah,
as many different yeah, get as many different touch points as you can. And that goes back to what I do in game too, right? Like it's the same thing. We want to have something in the game for everybody, right? And some of the stuff works for some people, some of it doesn't. We know that. And some
Yeah.
people, look, I get post game surveys after every game. I can tell you, there's you will never make everyone happy, right?
Yeah.
And there will always be something for someone to complain about. You can give them, something for free, and they'll tell you it's too cold or whatever. Like it's
Yeah.
just how it goes, right?
There's no way
But
you can make
at the end of
everyone
the
happy.
day, no, and that's not the objective. The objective is to find an opportunity to just invite as many people in as you can.
Yeah. Well, brother, I can't thank you enough for joining me here this evening, talking about Touchdown Pacific, which I can't wait for. Break Up, which I'm slowly working my way to getting there. And talking about your wicked job. I'm so happy for you and the job that you're excelling in and you're happy with. So thank you for joining us.
Appreciate that. No, a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Don't wait too long on those Grey Cup tickets because they are going fast. I don't want you to miss out. So don't
Yep.
wait for the Bombers to catch up. It ain't gonna happen. You want to come out here no matter what. All right.
You have to
And we'll
get
have
the
some fun.
gear.
Hey,
You have to get the gear twisted in, eh?
of
You had
course.
to get a little gear twisted in.
I got you guys coming in the house here on Sunday, so we're looking forward to hosting them. But we're gonna send them home. Um, the blue part is what we're working for. We're gonna send them home a little bit disappointed. That's our job. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
job. At the end of the day, I got to do
That's
my
fair.
job.
That's fair. I'm just gonna lay low in the weeds here. Still enjoying that shutout that doesn't happen in the CFL. Hopefully, some of that will bleed into the next game. But I'll
That's the
just
other thing. You guys haven't played in a week. We played and we lost again, so we got a little extra, piss and vinegar in the
oh
tank. I
yeah,
think here you're gonna be coming up against a team that's pretty hungry, and we'll see how it goes. It should look at the end of the day for me. I just want to get a football game. I want
yeah.
us to win, obviously, but like the first step for me is a good football game because it makes my job a heck of a lot easier.
Well, you know what? I'd be pissed too if I lost to the two last place teams in the division. So I get it. I get it. Consecutively. Just
I
saying.
think you haven't you, at one point here this year? No, you've been home and losing all the good teams. You are one of the worst teams. There we go. All right, I'm done. I'm done. I
We've always
swear.
been
I'm
in
done.
last. We've always been in last, so there's no one lower to beat. We're just punching up now. Before I let you go, though, like every guest we have, you got to do some quick shots with this quick questions. First answer that comes to mind, don't worry, it's all family friendly, nothing dirty. Ready?
Good.
How will the Oilers do this
Yeah.
season?
They will win the Stanley Cup.
If you were in,
You said quick, didn't you?
yep, and that's a great answer. If you were
Okay.
in a back alley
Okay.
fight, which Oiler, current or past, would you want to have your back?
Oh well, if it's past, it's George LaRock. If I can go back, I mean, there's nobody I'd want to have my back more than Big George. Are you kidding me? I
Very
mean,
good
maybe
answer.
Dave Semenko, but I don't know. I still take George LaRock, I think.
And we got some love for Dave Semenko in Winnipeg. We get those Smythe Division loves. So yeah, George LaRock is tough to
That's
beat.
right.
Favorite halftime show that you've seen?
Well, I mean, I've only ever seen Green Day live. That was last year. Hamilton was pretty great to see it live. But for my favorite all time, I'll go to the Super Bowl. For me, it's the Boss, Bruce Springsteen. That was the greatest halftime show I've ever seen for a Super
Mm,
Bowl. Pretty damn good.
mine was Prince.
Clarence Clemens up there was awesome. Prince is really good. In the Rain, what a good show.
Has while singing Purple Rain. What?
Perfect. Couldn't have planned it. Couldn't have planned it.
Favorite lines player, current or past?
Ooh, that's hard. I don't know if I can go past. I'll go with a current guy. I'll go with you know what? I'm gonna go with VA. And I'm gonna go with VA for two reasons. One, I love an underdog, and he's been an underdog his whole career. And
Yeah,
seeing him succeed right now is so exciting. And I've met him, I've spent time with him. He's a fantastic person. He's exactly what you think he is. And this is an uber competitor. This is not going fast at all. I'm going way too long, but I want to just sing
you're
his
loud.
praises for a second. And continues to be underappreciated in this league. It is a travesty that he has not got the love he deserves across this country, but he is going to get it this year.
Benny loves him. Benny loves him. If he's going to build an offense, he said the first CFL player he's going to pick is VA. Favorite Elks player, current or past?
Oh, past it's Gizmo Williams. I grew up
Nice.
when Gizmo was doing the backflips. Like for
Yeah,
me, he
yeah.
was the coolest thing on turf.
He's still a fan favorite. He just showed up in Edmonton a few weeks ago or something like that, and he'll forever be a fan favorite.
Absolutely. One of
And
a kind.
last question, favorite stadium experience?
I mean, is it? I can't say my own, can I? Um,
No.
that's a bit. I can't say. At home here. I will tell you, there have been some nights in this building that were pretty special. But here's what I will say.
Yeah.
I love the new building in Edmonton. I think what the Oilers have there is really, really awesome. They do some amazing things with it. But no, BC Place for sure. And when we turn the lights out in the fall and it becomes an
Oh,
arena show,
yeah.
nobody in the CFL can do what we can do because we're an indoor venue and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I literally look forward all year to that first 7 o'clock game in the fall where just before player intros we go to black and it's a theater and we're putting on a show and it is
Yeah.
beautiful. BC Place, not a question. You got to come see it in the fall.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll try and make my way there. Man, I got to make my way to BC. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I can't thank you enough. You're the best, dude.
Appreciate it. And hey, love the show, guys. Keep it up. I apologize. It's been a bit of a tough year for you so far, but I'm really not that sorry.
Like you said, it can turn around really quickly. So we'll see what's going on in a few months. But we got you this.
That's right. So CFL.
Man. All right. Well, from the famous words of LeVar Burton, we'll see y'all next time.
Hey, friends and neighbors, don't forget to check us out online on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Ray Denny Sports. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell us what you think.